In today's lesson, we're going to learn about literal equations. Literal equations are equations that involve more than one variable. Oh no. So examples are really just formulas. C equals 2 pi r, distance equals rate times time, and then the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, are all literal equations because they involve more than one variable. So the question is, how do you solve for one variable when you still have other variables? And that's what we are going to find out. Here's our first example, 4m minus 3n equals 8, and we're solving for m. So if I draw a line at my equal sign, my goal is to get m all by itself so that my final answer is m equals. So you really treat this just like any other equation. How do we get m by itself? We have to first move this negative 3n to the other side. And to do that, I'm going to add 3n to both sides. By doing that, they cancel on the left, and it leaves me with 4m equals. I often will write my variable first, 3n, and then my constant last. But it's not wrong if you keep it the other way. And now to get m by itself, I have to get rid of this 4, so I'm going to divide by 4. And here I'm going to divide everything by 4. So m equals, in some cases you can leave your final answer exactly like this. However, you want to look to see if either of the numbers in your numerator are divisible by the number in your denominator. So we have 3 and 4 and then 8 and 4. Well, I know you can do 8 divided by 4. So I'm actually going to divide that and divide these separately. So 3 divided by 4 I'm going to leave as the fraction 3/4 n plus 8 divided by 4 is 2. So here is my new equation solved for my variable m. Here's my second equation, and I'm going to solve for k. So if I put a line at my equal sign, I want to get k by itself. And since I have this fraction, I want to undo that fraction by multiplying both sides by my denominator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. On the left side, it's going to cancel out my 5 here, which leaves me with k minus 2 equals 11j times 5 is 55j. And now, my only thing left to do to get k by itself would be to add 2 to both sides. So, if I add 2 and add 2, here we have k equals, now 55j plus 2, they are not like terms. So 55j plus 2 at the end, I can't combine them. So here is my equation solved for k. Alright, this example is a little bit trickier. We're going to solve for x. But if I draw this line at my equal sign, you're going to see that x is on both sides of my equal signs, and they're part of a term in which they don't even have like terms, because one of them has this other variable z. Well, if I want to get x by itself, I'm going to at least get both of my x's on the same side of the equation. So I'm going to subtract this term xz on both sides. So the term xz is going to cancel out on my left side. And now, let's see, they will cancel out on my right side. If I look on my left side, there's nothing I can combine, but I want to move this negative 2y to the other side, so I'm going to add 2y to the other side. So by adding the 2y, my 2y cancels on the left and leaves me with 3x minus xz equals 2y plus 5. So my goal is to solve for x. And here's what you can do. If both of these terms have x, I can factor out an x, which is kind of the opposite of the distributive property. I'm dividing an x out in front. So since both terms have an x, you can write an x out in front and then divide both terms by that x, which would leave you with 3 minus z. We're undoing the distributive property. And this equals 2y plus 5. And now, to solve for x, here we have x times that quantity. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by the quantity 3 minus z. 3 minus z. So that cancels this whole thing out and leaves me with x equals 2y plus 5 divided by 3 minus z. So this one was a pretty complex literal equation. But I thought it was kind of fun. Okay, let's do this equation together, and then I might give you two that you can try on your own. So in this case, we're going to solve for t. So if I draw my line, it's solved for r right now, so we just want to solve it for t instead. So if t's on this side, let's leave the t here and move everything else. So instead of a plus v, I'm going to subtract v on both sides. On the right side, our v's cancel out. And then on the left, we can't combine these two together. We can just leave them as r minus v. And it equals 2/3 t times t. So to get t by itself, how do we undo that fraction 2/3? Well, you can think divide by 2/3, but really what are we doing? We are multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by that reciprocal. So on my right side, my 2/3 and 3/2 cancel out, and it leaves me with t equals 3/2 times the quantity r minus v. And you can leave that as your final answer. Your literal equation is solved for t. Here are two more equations I want you to solve. I want you to try them on your own first and then check your answer. So go ahead and pause the video and copy these down and see if you can figure them out. For the first one, if you follow the steps, I multiplied both sides by 11, and then I added x to both sides. Here, this isn't completely necessary. I just rewrote this step in a different order. And then to get a by itself, it's being multiplied by 10 and c, so I have to divide both sides by 10c. So, your final answer, a equals x minus 33 divided by 10c. And if you kept this step up here, that is perfectly fine. So you can have a equals negative 33 plus x over 10c. That is also a correct answer. So here are the steps for the second one. I'm solving for x, and I started out with x's on both sides of the equation. So I first got them on the same side by adding 13x to both sides. And then I was able to combine like terms to get 31x. And then to get x by itself, I had to subtract y on both sides and then divide by 31. So here I should have z minus 11y all divided by 31. So here's our last example, a story problem. It says the formula for volume of a rectangular prism is volume equals length times width times the height, where W is the width and H is the height. So, solve for W. So, first, before we even worry about all the numbers, let's just solve for W. So, since W is being multiplied by L and H, to solve for W, all you have to do is divide by both L and H. Divide by both L and H, because here this will cancel out your L and this will cancel out your H. So, I will have W equals your volume divided by your length times your height. So now we can plug in the numbers they gave us. It says find the width of the rectangular prism that has a volume of 79.04 cubic centimeters and a length of 5.2 centimeters and a height of 4 centimeters. So, following order of operations, I'm going to evaluate my denominator first. 5.2 times 4 is 20.8, and then I have to do the area in the numerator. So 79.04 divided by 20.8, and you should get that the width equals 3.8 centimeters. So there is your full lesson on literal equations. They look complicated because there's multiple variables, but you really just follow the same steps, so it's not too bad. Good luck with the lesson.